Okay, so networking on my behalf for Stand Up for Kids. I've never really done any type of fundraising, networking, except when I was homeless. I had to find means of feeding myself, which was going through restaurants and being like, hey, you guys messed up my food. Do you have a receipt? No. So that was the extent before I came to Stand Up for Kids. But when dealing with Stand Up for Kids, I was dealing with a large number of people who I was trying to find food for or other resources. So basically in one day I went into 3 different stores or restaurants. I started with Chick-fil-A, and I talked to one of the managers. He told me that basically he doesn't deal with the bigger portions of fundraising. He can do small groups but not large groups. So I was given a name and a time to come back, and it's always good to find the perfect time so that that person has time to talk and they can get more information. And I think that's what's key in talking to people, to try to get information and getting the needs met that you're trying to get met. I also went into Pizza Hut and I got some donations there. And then I got a couple, 20 cases of water from Safeway. And in every instance, you just have to, like, I guess, present yourself in a manner where you're passionate about what you're doing, and they can sense that. And in being passionate about what you're trying to achieve, you're able to develop a passion within that person to want to be able to help and donate. In the instance with the 20 cases of water, that was a one-time donation because they were outside of Phoenix. So he actually has a friend that works at Safeway who he referred me to and said he would personally place a call to him to try and set up a more consistent donation, which I'm still trying to follow up with. But it's always good to have like an incentive for people that kind of drives them to be able to donate. And the way that I am able to get donations, I have the tax ID number, and then I also write up proposals. It basically explains what Stand Up for Kids is, and then it describes our needs, what I'm asking for. So in the Chick-fil-A instance, I went through and I developed the first part based off John's little proposal, stating what Stand Up for Kids is, what we do. And the second part is the proposal requesting needs that we have for the house. So for Chick-fil-A, it was lunch for a group of 20. And I just kind of left what they were donating up to them because they'll be able to be more flexible, and you have a greater chance of getting a yes donation rather than a no donation when you leave it up to them what they're donating. But that's pretty much how I go about getting donations. I have a large list if anybody wants any other ideas too. I mean, from trying to get a van donated for Stand Up for Kids, computers, food, socks and underwear. I mean, there's just a lot of different needs that I see that Stand Up for Kids needs. And the more people to get out there and be able to network the proposals and everything like that, Stand Up for Kids will only grow from there. So.
Is it all nonprofit?
Yes, it is nonprofit, 501c3. Yeah.
You gotta have to be creative ideas.
Yes.
You gotta be creative ideas. You know, and you gotta stick with it. You know, like right now, I get stuff. A pair of socks. Hey, you can put, you know what I'm saying? You can put it online, so you know what? Hey, a pair of socks. You know, donate a pair of socks, whatever, you know?
Right.
And have a donation like that, whatever, you know?
Yes.
You guys all feel, you know what I'm saying? When you guys get a fresh pair of socks on, you know it feels good, right?
It's like gold, right?
Oh man, 2 day old ones, you know, you know, those away or something. So, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Cool, thank you, Krista.
Thank you.
Can you make sure I'm in it? She was about right here, right? No? Here? Here?
Sounds good. You're fine.
Here?
Yeah. You're in the middle right now.
So Krista is, I think, better at putting things into action, and I have like more of a theoretical background. Just from Tim said it was a networking organization. It was really more like a career assistance organization. So a lot of what we were doing was helping people network to find jobs. So that's where more of the background has come from. But now I've been involved in stand-up for roughly 2 years. But I am not nearly as good as Krista is just walking up. And there's a lot of things that she talked about that that I'll mention, but she's actually doing. So I don't know, probably one of the biggest things I want to hear is how you get the gumption
Help me out, right?
to walk up and do that. So yeah. So networking is defined as like a supportive system of individuals, groups, institutions that exchanges or shares information and services. It generally indicates or implies that there's going to be a cultivation of a relationship that's going to be productive in some way for hopefully both groups. Every single person that you talk to is a networking possibility. Every single person that you talk to. So the first thing that you want to do is sit down and set what your objectives and goals are. And obviously when you're networking for Stand Up for Kids, it's pretty clear. We want pretty much anything that will save us some money in providing our services.
Or money.
Or money, yeah, obviously.
What services do you have?
Huh?
What services do you have?
Well, we help youth 24 and under.
Oh, really?
So we do outreach just like some of the other.
You're that deep family, huh?
Yeah.
I'm an old man, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, but you probably remember when you were younger, and we give the socks to the younger kids as well. So, yeah. So a lot of people get freaked out about networking, me included. Like I know how to do it, but I'm not very good at doing it. And so a lot of people would say you just need a way to reframe your attitude regarding doing it. So trying to consider it as an activity for meeting new people, learning new things, and of course in our situation, number one, supporting the organization that we're all really passionate about. It's a lot easier to network if you're an extrovert because you get energy out of talking to other people. For introverts, it's a lot different. It's a lot harder, but there are things that you can do that are good for the organization because networking, and I'll talk a little bit more about this, while it's best in person, there is quality networking that can be done on the internet and in ways that are going to be a little easier for introverts. So one of the things that Krista talked about, or she mentioned it when we were talking to each other last night. She didn't go into it as much this morning, but like when she first walked up into Chick-fil-A, she talked to like just someone at the counter. They directed her to the manager, and as she said, the manager said, come back tomorrow and talk to somebody else. And she said, well, she took that opportunity to do more research. So research is a really, especially if you're gonna cold call somebody or you're gonna walk into a business, you're gonna get a lot further. And it's just like if you're trying to get a job and you go in for an interview, if you know more about the company, you'll be able to shape how, you're gonna help them. Well, if you know that more about, let's say, the mission of a company, and you can throw that out at somebody, Chick-fil-A might have hold on, let me just finish my sentence. Chick-fil-A might just have, they might have a mission statement that nobody else could expect, but it might be to serve people, and so then you remind them of that kind of thing. Is it?
Well, I actually submitted something online because for them you have to go to their philanthropy online to submit something. So I have something in the works there. Hopefully we'll be able to meet their requirements, but before you go in and you submit your application, you have to fit their requirements, which we do. So I'm hoping Chipotle will be able to assist us with like a lunch donation. So.
Nice, Chipotle. But because you probably opened up their website and found out something, you know that, and now when you go to talk to them, you can frame it in such a way.
It actually started out talking.
Okay.
She referred me to the website, but yeah. So.
Sure, yeah. Well, regardless, you mentioned last night that it's important if you can get to the right person at the right time and you know something about the organization, you're more likely to get stuff done. One of the other things that Krista is super awesome about is that, like she shared, she has a lot of ideas. So thinking outside of the box is really important. You don't always want to just go to the same place that everybody is going to. If you can think of a different spot, like she even mentioned last night that it crossed her mind to go to IKEA because, you know, some of our kids are going to end up getting into apartments and that could help furnish our apartments. You know, that would have never crossed my mind. Like, you need people like her to think outside of the box and create a list for all of the rest of us to follow.
Fundraising raise money for Stand Up for Kids as well at Wazzy's World.
Oh,
So,
right.
A lot of companies will hold donation times, even if it's after hours, like maybe a lock-in or something that would be really good for our youth or, you know, family members that we know. They will use the excess money or whatever and donate it to the organization. So always keeping eyes open for that kind of stuff is always good.
What do you mean exactly? Like, they have some sort of drive, or they're just open for extra hours to let people come in and use the facilities?
It's an actual fundraiser. I'm not sure how the donations work, but I know that it is a fundraising event type of thing. So I don't know if they say, okay, well, this is how much this is, but we're going to donate a portion of it, or if they're going to like what percentage they donate. But
Right.
I read online that they have that opportunity open, which is always a good opportunity. So.
Yeah. And that's something to keep in mind too. You know, obviously we're always looking for the things that we hand out to the youth. We've got clothing and food and hygiene and water, and those are all things that we need, and money. But also, she was mentioning this location, they have like laser tag and stuff, and that they would have us maybe have an event. Well, around the holidays, Jackie started calling places because we just wanted to be able to take the youth to do something fun over the holidays. And we ended up going to this awesome comedy club and had a total blast. And, you know, that's not something that a lot of the youth get to do all the time. So it's just thinking outside of the box and having the guts to pick up the phone. But again, what I was saying is doing a little research is only going to help. Yes, DK?
It was awesome.
It was awesome. I totally want to go back there. It was so much fun. So the first part of the networking process is thinking of, setting your goals and then thinking about the people that you know. And honestly, we're talking anything. Like, we're talking specifically right now, we've been talking about going to businesses, but just think about the people that you know. Think about your family. Think about the people that you're in school with. Talk to the friends of the friends that they know, and just be like, hey, I work with this organization and these are our needs. Because, you know, your aunt might work for a dental office that can get us floss. You know, I mean, it could be totally random, but you'd be surprised how many connections. Just an example, relatives, friends, neighbors, children's contacts if you've got kids, alumni associations, volunteers, places, health clubs, sports organizations, hobby groups, religious affiliations, service and fraternal groups like Kiwanis. Look at your bank statement and see who you've been paying, and think about how could that person help us out if we were able to go talk to them. And then professional contacts, former employers, co-workers, associations, anything that you can think of, and try to frame it in how can these people potentially help Stand Up for Kids, and how can I go about approaching them. So as you're brainstorming, you want to write all this stuff down. Think about everybody that you can think of, and start keeping track of it. One of the things, and maybe this is something we do all together as a Stand Up for Kids thing instead of an individual thing, but you kind of start a database, start a spreadsheet, we start listing all these people that you can think of, or if we all did one together, Krista would be able to put down all the organizations she's been thinking of, all the people you think, hey, I've got, you know, that rich uncle that maybe I could explain things to. And then we start thinking about putting together a letter or an email or the best way to contact these people. Whenever you're out and interacting with people, getting business cards is good, and adding that information to a database, obviously really good. If you're having a conversation with someone about Stand Up for Kids, get their information. We just met Sherry on the street. She was giving us her information, and we were almost ready to walk away, and I was like, oh, we should get your information, because otherwise we will never hear from Sherry again, potentially. But she's offering us an opportunity to do some fundraising. So getting her information. Now, in a better situation, if we'd had a little bit more time to talk to her, let's see, I remember that Sherry has done this before. I remember her saying that she has a daughter. I remember her saying that she owns a place with coffee. If I had her business card, I would write some of these things down on the back of it. When I went back and put her name in our database, I'd make those little notes. And then the next time we're exchanging emails or talking on the phone, I can ask her how her daughter is. I know that sounds silly, but when you start to create a relationship with someone, they're gonna appreciate you more, and that will make them feel a little bit more like they wanna do something for you. So anything, it's not just about getting names, it's not just about getting business cards. It's not about quantity, it's about quality, and that's how you're actually going to cultivate a relationship that's going to turn into something profitable, hopefully, for Stand Up for Kids. But the real thing to understand is that it can come from anywhere at any time, and you have to be willing and prepared to talk about Stand Up for Kids, share your passion, and make it happen. So personally, you know, like I said, a lot of my background is from the professional perspective where you're trying to get a job. It's really hard to walk up to somebody and sell yourself. Like to go to a networking event and be like, hi, I'm Kristen, and I did this, this, and this, and this, and I'm awesome. Well, DK wouldn't have any problems. But I have a hard time doing that. Luckily, we're talking about Stand Up for Kids, and it is really easy to sell for the most part. I mean, right? Most people don't like to see homeless people. They're awkward. They don't know what to do about it. But like Tim said in one of his talks earlier, you throw out youth. You draw on the fact that nobody likes to see a suffering child. That everybody wants, you know, youth to be able to be a part of a larger community. And bam, it's a lot easier to draw on that. So I mean, you know, guys, seriously, Stand Up for Kids is really easy to sell. So it's really just a matter of, like I said, thinking about who you want to talk to and working up the gumption to do it. But no matter how easy it is, you can still get nervous, you can still stumble on your words, you can still feel like, what does this person want to hear from me? What is the right thing to say? And so this is where the 60-second commercial comes in, also called an elevator pitch. So, and that comes from the idea that you get onto the elevator with somebody, you have 60 seconds before you hit 2 floors down. So how can you very, very quickly tell somebody about the organization and pitch it? And so this is actually an activity that we're going to do afterwards, is practicing our elevator pitches. It's also good to have like a 30-second version if you can, depending upon how quick it is, but just generally a couple of sentences. So when you're talking about jobs, it's background, you talk about your education, your accomplishment, your employment objectives, the positions that you want. So I was thinking, well, how can you do this for Stand Up for Kids? Well, if you wanted to talk about background, it depends on how much time you have. You could just explain what the organization does, but to give the organization credibility, which is ethos, yeah, okay. Then you can tell them, I mean, we are one of the oldest Stand Up for Kids chapters. We've been around for over 20 years, or about 20 years. Clearly, we've helped thousands and thousands of youth in a lot of different ways. We want to expand our services, and this is how you can help. So that might be a little bit more of what your 30-second commercial might be, or a 60-second commercial. And I think it's very important to apply the things that Tim taught us, because in different types of situations and different types of people, that might tweak a little bit, rather than trying to persuade somebody right at the end by saying, this is what you can do for us. You might want to keep it a little bit more invitational and focus more on sharing the story and then ask them what their experiences are with it, something like that. Something important to remember though is that writing the elevator pitch is only half of the work. You really, really, really have to practice it. And it might feel ridiculous, but if this is important to you and if you're passionate enough to come out and sleep on the ground in front of the library, then you could probably stand in front of a mirror for a couple of minutes, a couple of times a week or something, depending upon how often or when you're going to go out and do something, and just practice your elevator pitch, or like we're going to do here in a little bit. So it's easy for you to do it because the more practiced you are. I'm sorry, I forgot to answer your question. Let me finish the sentence. The more practiced you are, the more likely you're going to be able to do it. The more likely you won't miss that moment that you can do it because you're hesitating.
All right. For practicing my hair, for showering and
This is when you should do it.
actually do
You could like mentally practice while you're brushing your teeth too.
I can see this.
Yeah, I know. I can too. So right, because you're always going to feel awkward. I mean, I don't know. Maybe Tim never does. He probably doesn't. There are some personalities have no problems walking up to random people, but I do. So I started to say earlier, meeting people in person is always better because it gives an actual face. It even just the simple being able to see the passion in someone versus being on the phone or an email, which is totally flat. Always going to be better, but it's also always going to be a little bit more daunting. So there's definitely still a place for online networking. Honestly, what we do on our Facebook page, it's not networking, but it is a networking tool because we give out that address, and if an organization is interested in seeing how we work, and if we're a good organization and the types of stuff we do, they can go to that page. So that's valuable. If we had started kind of doing Twitter for a while, and I work in online marketing, so it's kind of, some people think it's good, some people think it's bad, but Twitter is a good way to go out and develop relationships with random organizations all around Phoenix, and then if you're tweeting a lot about the things that you need or whatever, it's possible that you're slowly developing relationships. There's different types of things that you can do online. And then obviously, the last of you have probably heard that we're in a big grant push right now. National is telling us we need money to keep our programs going. So it's getting pretty serious. And obviously a lot of grants are done online as well. So it's not exactly networking, but it is, because it still takes the research, it still takes the time to do it, it still takes the gathering of the information, it still takes the ability to pitch the organization and send it off. So there's also LinkedIn, blah, blah, blah. There's different things that we can do if someone has the time and the ability to do it. Another important thing, so we talked to Sherry on the street. We got her email address. Great, yay. We need to email her. Okay, so that's like the most important thing. Just we email her, we tell her, hey, we talked to you. We really appreciate the fact that you saw our shirts and you asked us what was going on and you gave us a little bit of your time while you were going in to turn in your hours to get money for your work week or whatever, and we, remind her that we knew what that situation was. And she can email us back. But it's keeping the communication loop going. Networking will fall flat on its face if you've made the interaction and then not done anything to follow up with it. Ideally, and this is something that we should help you with if you need it, we want to keep cultivating that conversation with Chick-fil-A. I mean, okay, some places might be like, don't come back. But
yeah. I think it's really important to follow up with the thank you cards immediately.
Yep.
I need to get done today because those still have not been sent out, and I think we're pretty much past that time of
Okay.
the thank you timeline.
Uh-huh.
So when we get to the youth house, I need to make sure that we get something out in the mail today.
We've got the postcards, and if
Yes.
there's none in the office, then I've got some at home, and I'll be coming back later tonight. So
Okay.
I'll bring you some.
Okay, yeah.
So we
definitely
do have postcards that say we appreciate your help. It's got pictures on it, and that's a real simple way. But obviously, any kind of thank you card, even if it's in the email or whatever, you constantly want to keep in touch with these people because you just don't want them to fall away. I mean, they've already been generous with you, so stay in touch. I mean, that's actually something that we need really desperately because we had a wonderful Fear Lease leader for years, and when she left, there wasn't a lot of information to keep some of the things going, and so there were sponsors that she had set up that we have lost contact with. And so now we kind of need to start over, and we're going to be calling her and being like, help us, tell us some of these sponsors, you know. But if we had this database, maybe that was upkept a little better or something, that would go really well. Networking should also never be a one-way street. Yes, we're saying thank you to them. We're not really in a situation where we can give them that much, but we can certainly regularly give them our appreciation. We could even find ways to list them as sponsors on things that would help them. You know, anything that we can do to continue cultivating that relationship. So I did want to. So that's that as far as regular networking goes. I just wanted to mention there's a different kind of networking that I didn't really think about when I gave this talk at the last one, and that's the networking that we do on outreach. And that's a totally different type of networking than we're talking about as far as getting money and services, but it's incredibly important, and it's a totally valuable and necessary part of Stand Up for Kids. So Anita told DK that he should come down to the youth house 2 years ago. DK is on this retreat with us, teaching us a lot of stuff, and we know that we've helped him and he's helped us a ton. And so if Anita hadn't networked with him in the way that she did, we wouldn't have him. And he's a valuable part of our organization. So when we go out on the street in Tempe, I find this to be really cool. So the first thing that you have to do is ask around and see where you can find homeless youth. So it's a little bit different. In Phoenix, you get in the van and you go and you've got the big purple van and a lot of people recognize it. It's a little bit different. You're still doing networking once you actually get the kids out to the van. But I was just contemplating on Tempe outreach, where you've got to kind of guess who you think might be homeless and then say, hey, you know, we work for, do you know any youth that we can help? And then they'll point you around. Now the next difficult thing is when you find the youth is you got to try to remember their names. And that's an important part of any kind of networking. You're not getting a business card from these kids. In fact, you're getting 3 different names because they've got their street name and maybe another name people like to call them and maybe their real name, and then you have to try to remember it. But it helps a lot the next time when you go out on the street and you remember that you ran into a guy named Lucky. Isn't that someone you remembered? Okay, so then they appreciate that, and then they will be even more open to telling you where the kids are down the street. Better yet, we ran into a guy one time. He was so excited. He recognized Stand Up for Kids from a time when he was in California. And he got up with us and walked up and down the streets with us, trying to help us find people. So it's a different kind of networking, but it's also incredibly important and is going to end up helping us serve people better. And so, yeah, and the more that you can learn about the youth, the more that they're going to appreciate you, the more likely they are to help you succeed in our goals to help each other. I mean, most of the time they are trying to help each other as well. So, anyway.
Just to add to that, I mean, if we're not out there pulling youth into the youth house wouldn't even exist because we wouldn't have youth to provide services to.
Right.
So.
And in that regard, I want to mention 2 things. I meant to bring some of our business cards, and they're like leadership team business cards, but I think that business cards are really cheap to print, so I would really like to start getting business cards to everybody. Everybody should have 5 business cards in their wallet at all times. If you know, that's what I would like to see. But then on top of that, Zach, the graphic designer, and I are in the process of making business cards for outreach that will have our hours, the address, and a small map to the youth house. So that is something that we will also, maybe everybody should have 5 of those too, because you could be walking down the street and give that out just as well as we could have to Sherry. And that will also have our email address and Facebook page and stuff like that. So business cards, we're going to get them to you. In fact, I'm going to see if I can find some in the office when we get to the youth house, and we'll shell some out right away. So
I think there is something.
yeah, there should be. All right, thanks.
So